Another thing that I am starting to notice are those fancy chain belts, which were more metal and faux leather than anything and did nothing that a belt is actually supposed to do, which is highly ironic because the era was marked by baggy jeans, cargo pants, bell bottoms, and the worst horrors that marked Y2K fashion, which I am sure everybody who actually remembers that trend will agree with me. So say it together, were low-rise jeans. Those midriff showing, butt crack revealing pair of monstrously uncomfortable pants were the worst thing to happen to anyone with a backside, and more so if the person had a uterus. Welcome to the Sum of Everything podcast, where we discuss a little bit of a lot of topics, ranging from spirituality to finance and everything in between. I'm your host Aishwarya, a serial hobbyist with an unquenchable thirst for learning, especially through new experiences. In this podcast, we will scratch every itch of curiosity, explore various perspectives, step out of our comfort zone, and experience some of everything. Because after all, we are just that, a sum of all our experiences. So, let's dive right in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sum of Everything podcast. This week's episode is going to be interesting because it's a little different from what I've done so far, in the sense that I am going to be speaking on something topical rather than something that is necessarily self-improvement related. The title of this episode is a dead giveaway. So yes, we are going to be talking about Y2K, specifically Y2K fashion trends. But for those of you who are not in the know, let me give you a little bit of context. Y2K is a term that is used as an abbreviation for year 2000. Y2K would be a term that is used for anything that came around the turn of the millennium. Why is Y2K important or significant? Well, for starters, because it was the turn of the millennium and we suddenly went from 100 years of 19-somethings to 20-somethings to the year 2000. And that was a very significant milestone in the history of the world. It also coincided with a lot of other things like very vast technological improvements and innovations. Cell phones became ubiquitous. A lot of things changed because it was sort of like a reset that was happening in the minds of everybody. Fashion, of course, was no exception to this, and we got some extremely iconic looks during this time. But those of you who are planning to tune out just because we're going to talk about fashion, I promise you there's more in store. I am, of course, no fashion expert. I have very little inherent knowledge of fashion, and whatever I know has come from a lot of study, a lot of observation, and being blessed with people around me who are much better at fashion and looks and styling than I am. In fact, I think one of my earliest memories of my best friend is when she came into my house, barged into my room, threw open my closet and started ruffling around through my clothes just so she could change what I was wearing and she could style me properly. A lot of people have the inherent skill and talent to identify fashion trends, to follow them, to know what looks good on them naturally. But of course, that was not me. I did not come born with inherent knowledge of fashion, nor was I interested in it in the beginning. Fashion is just something I cultivated an interest in because I wanted to learn how to present myself better. I wanted to understand what people were talking about. And in general, just because of the person that I am, I like to delve into things, learn about things. And in this case, it was about what silhouettes look good on me, depending on the kind of body that I have, what colors and prints would look good on me, and things like that. So I was just interested in learning how to dress myself better. And so I delved into it. But that's not the case with everybody, and I understand that. So maybe fashion is not in your purview of topics you're interested in, and that's okay. But we are called the sum of everything for a reason, and we will talk about various different things just so we can learn about them, because at the end of the day, that's what makes us, us. So coming back to fashion, we know that fashion trends come and go. they're as changeable as the weather. In fact, quite literally, most couture and fashion houses will have at least two collections of clothes based on the season, which are the spring and summer collection or the SS collection for the year, and the fall winter collection or the FW collection for the year. So in case you ever came across the terms SS24 and FW24, that's what that means. Spring summer 2024 and fall winter 2024. So that's a little bit of trivia for those who didn't already know that. Anyway, whether you follow couture or not, whether you care about what is presented on the runways or not, and whether you know the names of the famous designers of today's time or not, fashion affects every last one of us. Now, we could be sitting in our bedrooms thinking, I really don't care what people are wearing at the various red carpet events, and that's okay. But the fact is, whether we like it or not, what is being presented on the runways, what is being worn by celebrities, and what the designers are designing percolates its way down to every last one of us. And this phenomenon is most beautifully and aptly explained in the movie The Devil Wears Prada. If you haven't watched that movie, by the way, that is a sin in itself. You absolutely must watch it. I don't know how many times I have rewatched that movie. But in this movie is a scene where Miranda Priestley, a character based on Anna Wintour, the editor-in-chief of Vogue, played by the incomparable Meryl Streep, explains to Andy, who is played by the fantastic Anne Hathaway, that the blue sweater that she is wearing was specifically designed to get to the store that she picked it up from, and how it made its way down from the runways. And that scene is so powerful because it puts into perspective just how important clothes are and how much they affect every last section of the society and every aspect of our lives. And not just the outfit that we're wearing for the day and the mood that it puts us in. Fashion, in fact, has the power to influence thinking. And in fact, it is one of the most powerful tools to make statements, whether politically or socially, and it definitely plays a role in giving direction to collective mindsets. If you think that's not really the case and you're wondering how fashion could possibly play a role in directing collective mindset, then just think about the last time you saw a celebrity wearing a particular sari and almost unconsciously picked out a similar outfit the next time you went shopping. An example that comes to mind is in early 2012, we had just joined college and a friend of mine was wearing kurtas with trousers. This concept has become so common now, but at that time it was brand new and not being done by anybody else. And I know that I, among many others, made fun of her. Why was she wearing a kurta with trousers? That just didn't make sense. It was so weird. 2 years later, in the film Piku, Deepika Padukone does the same thing, and suddenly it's all the rage. I have since apologized to that friend for making fun of her and do acknowledge that she has a certain way with her clothes and is a trendsetter. All of this to say that what you wear and what you see other people wear makes an impact on how you view the world at the time. What's interesting is that fashion trends have a way of coming back around every few decades. Just some time ago, for instance, the trends were reminiscent of the way women dressed in the 50s and the 60s. Flared skirts, cinched waist, A-line dresses, basically the silhouette that emphasized the curves of a woman's body. But in the last couple of years now, we are seeing a slow return of the Y2K fashion. And this is extremely interesting to me because it is the first fashion trend that I consciously remember and I'm able to recall how I felt about it when I was a child. Just some time ago, for instance, I saw a reel about the layered tank tops making a return. It was funny at first with millennials giving Gen Z and Gen Alpha advice on how to correctly layer not one, not two, but as many as 5 tank tops and how to actually master the trend. And I remember a time when this was actually a thing and we used to do it in school, or rather outside of school. Slowly but surely, I saw a return of other things that marked Y2K. The explosion of butterfly accessories, for instance. Hair clips, rubber bands, tops, pants. At that time, everything had butterflies on them, and I'm seeing a slow return of our winged bug friends again. Another thing that I am starting to notice are those fancy chain belts, which were more metal and faux leather than anything, and did nothing that a belt is actually supposed to do, which is highly ironic because the era was marked by baggy jeans, cargo pants, bell bottoms, and the worst horrors that marked Y2K fashion, which I am sure everybody who actually remembers that trend will agree with me. So say it together, were low-rise jeans. Those midriff showing, butt crack revealing pair of monstrously uncomfortable pants were the worst thing to happen to anyone with a backside, and more so if the person had a uterus. Now, I know that my reaction to the low-rise jeans was particularly vitriolic. But that doesn't mean that I hate everything about Y2K fashion trends. The colors, the prints, slogans, all of that was great. Very youthful and vibrant and very catered to my personality type. But that's about it. That's all I can personally take away from the trend, or I'm comfortable with, or that I look forward to. And at this point, it would be fair for you to ask me why I am so bothered by the trend coming back. Fair question. The answer is because nothing about the actual clothes, the cuts, the actual pieces that were worn, the silhouettes of the time did anything to support a healthy, normal body. And now this is a trigger warning for body image issues. If you remember anything about that time, you will recall that all the celebrities we saw on TV were extremely skinny. Everybody around you was encouraging you to not just shed extra weight, but basically shed anything that was not your bare minimum flesh and bones. People on TV looked like they were clothed skeletons. Those with just a little bit more flesh on their body were called chubby. Crash diets were highly encouraged. And if you just happen to go back and see clips from reality shows that auditioned models at the time, you can tell that if you were a normal-sized person, you were considered large. Plus-size models. And the return of that mentality is what scares me the most. The worst part is that it's already happening, and it is undoing everything positive that was done by the body positivity movement that was all the rage some time ago. Of course, every movement and every fashion trend has its ups and downs. And while the body positivity movement encouraged people to love themselves the way they were and to embrace that little bit of extra weight, to not care about what other people think, to not be unhealthy about weight loss, and to approach health and fitness with a positive mindset, with a healthy perspective, it did, of course, come with its own set of problems, where sometimes lifestyle-related obesity was accepted without much regard to its health implications. But while that was one extreme of the spectrum, what comes with the return of Y2K fashion is definitely the other extreme. And the interesting aspect of this is that, ironically, the same set of people who were at least partially responsible for bringing the society collectively out of the quote-unquote anorexia mindset are the people who are taking it back. Whether we like it or not, the Kardashian-Jenners are highly regarded trendsetters. People care. about what they wear, how they look, what they eat, the brands that they endorse. People care about it. And they've marketed themselves and put themselves in a position where they make people care about what they have to say. So when Kim Kardashian showed up on a red carpet, having enhanced her curves surgically, to put it in the most delicate way possible, people embraced it. They took it as a positive sign, and so they started embracing their own curves. Now, when the Kardashian Jenners are removing all the extra fat from their body surgically or using medical means to go about shedding the extra weight, people are following suit. The problem is when medical means are used in an unregulated manner, they cause all sorts of health concerns, which not everybody is mindful of. Another major impact is going to be on the preteens and teenage kids growing up in this era, because as a preteen and a teenager who grew up in the era of Y2K fashion, I know how conscious I felt about not being the skinny, tall girl that everybody wanted to be. Clothes were just not made for me. Nothing fit me right. Nothing suited me well. It was an extremely disappointing time, and that can have such a major impact on the mindset of a young person. Because people as young as 10, 11, 12 are expected to look a certain way and dress a certain way. Otherwise, they are just not fashionable and are judged by their peers and sometimes even adults. It is horrifying, to say the least. The problem is, when you're that young and that impressionable, small comments can cause deep and lasting wounds that have the potential to cause lifelong trauma. Years, decades later, you might look in the mirror and still not be happy with how you look, irrespective of what positive movement and what love yourself movement is going on in the world. Because to participate in that movement, to participate in loving yourself wholeheartedly, a lot of effort and a lot of unlearning has to go into removing the deeply rooted mindset that I am not worth it if I am not skinny. So yes, I am upset about the body-hugging white crop top worn with the low-rise baggy cargo pants, because that outfit is not meant for me. It makes me feel short, it makes me feel fat, and it does not flatter me at all. But that's what I'm going to find on the shelves of the stores that I go to. I'm going to find revealing tops. I'm going to find low-rise pants, mini skirts, and mostly items of clothing that don't flatter any part of me. And as an avid shopper who takes such pleasure in the act of shopping, that upsets me. But I want to take this time and opportunity to ask a few things of anybody who might be similarly affected by the trends that are coming our way. If you happen to share my distaste of the Y2K fashion trends, or any trend for that matter, please remember that you don't have to follow the trend. You can absolutely choose to ignore it and dress the way you always dressed and wear articles of clothing that make you feel comfortable and happy and confident in your own skin. There is no compulsion to follow the trend. It's going to be a little bit more work, but I'm sure we will always find certain pieces of clothing on the shelves that suit us, that flatter us, and make us like ourselves. And if not, there's always vintage clothing stores. And here's another thing. If you have impressionable young kids around you, and that includes that inner child in you, please remind them as often as you can and as lovingly as you can that what they see on TV is not real. It does not need to be followed. They are amazing the way they are, and if attention needs to be brought to health and fitness, it needs to be done the right way, and not in a way that makes an entire generation of young people obsessed with losing weight and looking skinny and resorting to unhealthy means to achieve these objectives. I hope you remember this. I hope that tomorrow, when you go shopping and are unable to find anything you like because nothing on the shelves meets your aesthetic, remember that you don't have to conform. Remember that the tides always turn. What is fashionable today will not be fashionable tomorrow. Apna time aayega. I hope you liked today's episode. If you'd like to discuss anything that we've talked about today, then please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear you out, discuss, debate, and listen to any feedback that you may have. Until the next episode, this is me signing off. I hope you have a lovely week. Bye-bye.